I never thought the deepest cut would come from the person I trusted most. One moment he was helping me with the bills. The next I realized my signature had been stolen, my very name twisted into something I never wrote. That betrayal lit a fire in me I never thought I had. My name is Isabel, and before I dive into this story, I want to ask you, where are you watching from right now? Drop it in the comments below. It still amazes me how stories can reach across states, countries, even oceans, and somehow connect us through shared heartbreak and resilience. Now let me take you back to where this all began. I lived a simple, hard-working life. Nothing glamorous, nothing easy, but steady. I worked long hours at a community center, enough to pay the rent, keep food on the table, and slowly chip away at student loans. Money was tight, but I was proud of what I built. I managed every bill with precision, sometimes balancing pennies at the end of the month. It wasn't wealth, but it was mine, earned honestly. And then there was him. We'd been together for almost 5 years by then. He was charming in that casual, street-smart way that makes people instantly comfortable. My friends liked him. My mother thought he had a good head on his shoulders. And I was in love. He made me laugh when I came home exhausted, and when things got hard, he'd tell me, "Don't worry, Izzy. We'll get through it together." At least, that's what I believed. The first time he offered to help with the bills, it felt like love. I had come home one evening, worn down from chasing down late payments from families at the center, and found him sitting at the kitchen table with my unopened mail spread neatly before him. "I know how much this stresses you out," he said gently. "Why don't I handle it for a while? You've got enough on your plate." The words melted me. Who wouldn't want a partner willing to shoulder the boring, grinding work of bill paying? I felt cared for, even cherished. I handed him the checkbook, showed him how to log into the online accounts, and thought to myself, this is what partnership looks like. And for a little while, it seemed perfect. The electricity bill disappeared before I even remembered it was due. The internet never cut off, even when my brain was foggy from exhaustion. I thought, maybe this is how grown adults do it, working as a team, sharing burdens. But then the cracks appeared. It was subtle at first. A letter arrived from the bank about a payment I supposedly made, except I didn't. I brushed it off. Maybe I'd forgotten. But my gut clenched as I held the paper. Then there were the conversations that didn't sit right. One night, I asked if he'd paid the water bill yet. He chuckled, leaned back in his chair, and said, "Izzy, stop worrying. I've already got it handled. You don't need to stress about money anymore." Something about the way he said it, too smooth, too quick, made my chest tighten. I wanted to be grateful, but instead I felt oddly displaced, like I'd been written out of my own story. Friends noticed before I admitted it to myself. "You sure you're comfortable letting him run all your accounts?" My coworker Marlene asked one afternoon as we ate lunch in the break room. "Of course," I replied, forcing a smile. "He's just helping me out." She gave me that look only older, wiser women can give, half sympathy, half warning. "Just don't give away too much control, honey. Love is love, but money's money. People change when it's involved." Her words lodged in my mind like a splinter I couldn't pull out. Still, I convinced myself everything was fine. Isn't this what couples did? Share the load? Build trust? I thought maybe my unease was just leftover fear from years of managing everything alone. But then came the night that changed everything. I was organizing old papers, tax returns, job applications, when I stumbled on a loan document addressed to me. At the bottom, in neat ink, was my name, my full name signed in cursive. Except, it wasn't my handwriting. I remember holding that page under the lamp, staring at it for what felt like hours. The loops in the letters were too wide. The slant was wrong. It looked close enough to pass, but not to fool me. My stomach dropped. Had he really signed my name? That night, I barely slept. My mind ran circles around the possibilities. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe I had signed it and just forgotten. Maybe, God forbid, someone else had stolen my identity entirely. but the truth settled heavy in my chest. The man I loved, the man paying my bills, had put pen to paper and written my name without asking. And in that moment, I felt a tiny spark of dread ignite. I didn't know it yet, but that spark was the beginning of a fire that would consume everything we had. The next morning, I tried to shake it off. Maybe I had signed that paper and forgotten. Stress does things to memory, right? That's what I told myself while brushing my teeth, while pouring coffee, while forcing myself into the rhythm of the day. But the image of that forged signature wouldn't leave me. It pulsed in my head like a heartbeat, steady and undeniable. He seemed normal enough when I got home that night. Dinner on the stove, his easy smile, a joke about how terrible my favorite TV show was. I wanted to believe in that version of him, the partner who teased me, who made spaghetti just the way I liked it. Still, the words slipped out before I could stop them. Hey, did you sign something in my name? A loan or something like that? He didn't even blink, just laughed, loud and carefree, like I'd accused him of sneaking cookies. Izzy, come on. You were exhausted, remember? You said it was fine if I handled the boring stuff, don't you remember? The way he asked it, smooth, rehearsed, made me question my own mind. Did I remember? Had I nodded absent-mindedly one night and given him permission? My gut said no, but my heart wanted to believe yes. From then on, the bills never even made it into my hands. He intercepted the mail, stacked the envelopes on his desk, and assured me everything was taken care of. When I asked to see receipts, he'd wave them vaguely, folding them back into his wallet before I could look too closely. "You don't need to worry about this anymore," he said more than once. "That's the whole point. I'm helping you." Helping me. The words should have comforted me. Instead, they felt like chains tightening around my wrists. I noticed small changes in him, too. He became more territorial about the desk in our living room, the one where he kept the laptop and the bills. If I so much as brushed past it, he'd close the screen with a sharp snap, and when I brought it up, his charm slipped into something harder. "You think I'd hurt you?" he asked once, voice low, jaw tight. "After everything I've done to make your life easier?" I shook my head quickly. No, of course not. But the way he watched me lingered in the air long after. Marlene's words replayed in my mind at odd moments. Love is love, but money's money. I wanted to trust him. I wanted to believe in the man who rubbed my feet after long days, who whispered promises about our future. But I couldn't ignore the bank notifications that started pinging my phone late at night. Purchases I didn't make, transfers I didn't approve. When I asked about them, he was always ready with an answer. "Oh, that was for the car. Remember the repairs?" "That's just the insurance auto draft. You signed up for that, babe." "Relax, Izzy. You're being paranoid." Paranoid. That word stung. It made me second-guess myself. Was I losing it? Or was he pulling threads I couldn't yet see unraveling? The breaking point came one Saturday morning. I woke earlier than him, rare, since he usually rose before me. The apartment was quiet, sunlight just beginning to filter through the blinds. His wallet sat on the coffee table half open. I don't know what made me do it. Maybe desperation. Maybe that quiet little voice that refused to die. I reached for it, fingers trembling, and slid out the folded receipts inside. There it was, my name. Again. On a store account application I had never filled out. The ink looked fresh. My breath caught. My knees nearly gave out. It wasn't paranoia, it wasn't stress or bad memory. He was signing my name. Again and again. When he finally stirred awake, I shoved the paper in front of him. "What is this?" My voice cracked. He rubbed his eyes, groaned, and muttered, "Izzy, not this again. I told you, I'm just helping you out. Don't make this bigger than it is." "Helping me?" I snapped, louder than I'd ever spoken to him before. By pretending to be me? By putting my name on things I never agreed to? His jaw tightened, eyes narrowing. "Do you trust me or not?" And there it was, the question that cornered me. Because if I said no, I was accusing the man I loved of betrayal. But if I said yes, I was surrendering myself to a game I didn't understand. I said nothing. Silence was safer. But inside, something shifted. From that moment, I began keeping my own quiet record. I saved notifications, copied statements, and snapped photos of anything with my forged name. I wrote down dates and times in a little notebook I hid under my bed. I felt like a spy in my own home. Every smile, every kiss, every whispered promise was shadowed by suspicion. And yet, I stayed. Because leaving meant admitting the truth, that the person I trusted most was the one unraveling me. And I wasn't ready. Not yet. The notebook under my bed grew heavier with each passing week, not in weight but in meaning. Page after page filled with dates, dollar amounts, screenshots taped carefully into place. Every entry felt like a quiet betrayal made visible. I thought maybe, if I gathered enough proof, he'd finally admit it. Maybe I'd catch him at the right time and he'd break down, apologize, and promise to stop. That's what my heart wanted to believe, that this wasn't malice, just a mistake that could be fixed. But hearts are liars sometimes. The confrontation happened on a Wednesday night. We just finished dinner. Chicken stir-fry he claimed he'd whipped up because you've been too tired to cook. He was leaning back on the couch, scrolling his phone, when I sat down across from him. I placed the notebook on the coffee table between us. "What's this?" he asked casually without looking up. "My notes," I said, voice trembling but steady enough to carry. "Proof of what you've been doing." That made him look. His eyes darted to the notebook, then back to me. "Doing?" He gave a short laugh, half incredulous, half mocking. "Izzy, what game are you playing now?" I opened it, showed him the receipts, the signatures, the bank notifications highlighted in yellow. "You're signing my name, taking out accounts, making withdrawals I never approved." For a moment, just a breath, I saw something flicker in his face. Not guilt, but calculation. Then it was gone. He leaned forward, grabbed the notebook, and flipped through the pages like they were nothing but doodles in a child's journal. "You think this means something?" His voice was calm, too calm. "Izzy, you gave me permission. You don't remember, but you did. I was helping you. This," he waved the book, "is paranoia written down in ink." My chest burned. "Don't call me paranoid. I know my own signature. And that isn't mine." His smile hardened into a line. "So what? Now I'm the bad guy because I made sure the lights stayed on? Because I kept your credit from sinking? I didn't ask you to forge my name," I snapped. He threw the notebook down, the sound sharp against the table. "You didn't ask for a lot of things, Izzy, but I still did them because you needed me to. You think you can handle everything on your own? Newsflash, you can't." His words stung, not because they were true, but because a part of me feared they might be. I had been stretched thin for so long, working late, juggling bills, forgetting meals. Had I unconsciously leaned on him more than I admitted? Still, I knew this wasn't right. "There's a difference between helping and lying," I whispered. He leaned back, folding his arms, studying me like a puzzle. "No, there's just surviving, and I did what I had to do to keep us afloat." That word, us, it twisted in my gut, because what he was doing wasn't about us. It was about him, his choices, his control. The days after that conversation blurred together. He acted like nothing had happened, like our fight was just a small spat over dishes or laundry. He made breakfast, kissed my forehead, sent me texts at work that said, "Miss you." But I felt the shift. His patience thinned when I asked about money. His tone sharpened when I lingered near his desk. And the bills, those damn bills, kept vanishing into his hands. One night, I tried again, softer this time. "Can we go back to the way things were?" I asked, voice small in the dark. "I can pay the bills myself. I want to." He rolled over, eyes glinting in the glow of the streetlight outside. "You don't get it, do you? You'll drown without me. You can't handle it." I turned away, biting my lip until it nearly bled, because part of me feared he was right. That was the cruelty of it. His lies weren't just about money. They wormed into my sense of self, Every forged signature didn't just steal dollars, it stole confidence. It made me question my memory, my capability, even my sanity. I'd once been proud of how I handled life's weight. Now I felt like a child being scolded for trying to carry groceries too heavy for her arms, and he liked it that way. I could see it in the way his shoulders relaxed whenever I backed down, the smugness in his smile when I let him handle things. Still, the notebook remained under my bed, growing heavier with each entry. I hadn't given up. Not fully. I told myself I was waiting for the right moment, the final piece that would shatter the illusion completely. Deep down, though, I was afraid. Afraid that if I pushed too hard, I'd lose him. Afraid that if I didn't, I'd lose myself. And somewhere in that tangled mess of fear and denial, I realized something bitterly clear. He wasn't going to admit it. He wasn't going to stop. And if I wanted my life back, I'd have to take it. It happened on a gray Saturday afternoon, the kind of day where the rain taps endlessly against the windows, and the world feels smaller, closed in. I was cleaning, more to quiet my racing thoughts than anything else, when I decided to tackle the drawer he always kept locked in the living room desk. The lock wasn't much, a flimsy little thing I'd never dared to touch before. But that day, courage and desperation mixed into something reckless. I found a thin screwdriver in the kitchen, slid it into the gap, and within seconds, the drawer popped open. Inside, my entire world shifted. There were stacks of documents, some crisp and new, others worn with use. My name appeared again and again, credit card applications, loan agreements, even a refinancing form for my late father's small property outside the city, the one asset I had left from him. The air left my lungs. My hands shook as I pulled page after page into the light. Every signature was mine, but not mine. Each curve of the letters, each flourish, close enough to pass, but just wrong enough to make bile rise in my throat. He hadn't just been helping with the bills, he had been dismantling my identity, one forgery at a time. I sat there for I don't know how long, papers spread around me like the aftermath of an explosion. My mind reeled with questions I couldn't answer. How long had this been going on? How much debt was tied to my name? How far had he planned to take it? The property papers cut the deepest. That land was more than dirt and grass. It was the last connection to my father, who had worked himself sick to keep it paid off. And here it was, on the chopping block, because the man I trusted most decided my name was his to use. Tears blurred my vision, but I couldn't stop reading. Every new page was another wound. When he came home later, I was still sitting there surrounded by evidence. The moment he saw me, his face darkened. "What are you doing?" His voice wasn't playful this time. It was sharp, dangerous. I held up the property form, my hands trembling but firm. "What is this? You forged my father's name, my name on this. You're stealing from me." He slammed the door shut, the sound echoing through the apartment. "Don't use words you don't understand." "Stealing." My voice cracked. "That's exactly what it is. You're gutting my future, my family's legacy. For what? For money? For power?" Tears. His jaw clenched, eyes hard as stone. "It's not stealing if it's ours. We're building a life together. Every dime I've touched has been for us. You think I'm the villain here, but I'm the only one making sure we don't drown. By lying? By making me into someone I'm not?" He stepped closer, towering over me. "By surviving." The room went quiet except for the hammering of my heart. I realized then that he wasn't going to stop, not because he couldn't, but because he didn't want to. This wasn't a mistake. It was a choice. I stood my ground, though my body shook. "You don't get to decide my future for me. You don't get to use my name like it's yours." He scoffed, a sound dripping with contempt. "Without me, you're nothing but a paycheck-to-paycheck burnout. I gave you freedom. I gave you peace. And this," he gestured to the papers, "this is how you thank me?" His words cut deep, but not in the way he wanted. For the first time, I heard them clearly, stripped of charm and excuses. He wasn't protecting me, he was controlling me, and I couldn't unhear it. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of our relationship like scenes in a movie. The laughter, the meals, the whispered promises, each one now tainted by the shadow of his betrayal. By dawn, something in me had hardened. The fear was still there, coiled tight in my chest, but it had a new companion: resolve. I got up quietly, tiptoed past him, still asleep, and pulled the notebook from under my bed. Then I gathered every paper I had found in that drawer, slipped them into a folder, and tucked it under my arm. It was time to stop documenting and start acting. I remember standing in the kitchen, folder pressed against me, staring out the window at the rain-washed street. For weeks, maybe months, I had been living in a cage I didn't recognize until the door slammed shut. But now I held the key. I didn't know exactly what would happen next, how much I would lose, how messy the fight would get. But I knew one thing with absolute clarity. I couldn't let him sign my life away piece by piece. And if it meant burning everything down to protect myself, then so be it. The folder under my arm felt heavier than stone. It wasn't just paper. It was evidence. It was betrayal made tangible. It was a future I refused to let him write for me. I left the apartment that morning without a word. My heart thudded in my chest as I walked briskly down the block, afraid every sound behind me might be his footsteps catching up. I didn't have a plan, not yet. Just instinct. Protect myself. My first stop was the bank. I remember the look on the teller's face when I spread out the forged documents across her desk. She excused herself, returned with a manager, and soon I was seated in a private office with both of them leaning forward like detectives over a case file. "This isn't your signature?" the manager asked. "No," I whispered. My throat was tight. "None of these are mine." He studied the forms carefully, then glanced at me with something between sympathy and alarm. "We're going to have to flag these accounts immediately. If what you're saying is true, this is fraud." The word landed heavy, final. Fraud. I wanted to cry, but instead I nodded, my jaw clenched. From there, the days spiraled into a blur of logistics. Phone calls to credit agencies, hours spent on hold repeating the same story. "No, I didn't authorize this account. Yes, that's my name, but no, I didn't sign it." Each repetition was like peeling back the skin of a wound, raw and stinging. I froze accounts, disputed charges, requested fraud alerts. Every step was a battle, forms to fill, passwords to change, officials to convince. My voice shook at first, but by the end of the day, something inside me steadied. He had stolen my voice when he stole my name, but now I was taking it back. That night, I didn't go home. I stayed at Marlene's. Yes, the same Marlene who had warned me months earlier. When I showed up on her doorstep with swollen eyes and a folder of evidence, she didn't ask questions. She just opened the door, pulled me into a hug, and whispered, "You're safe here." Over cups of lukewarm tea at her kitchen table, I laid it all out. The forged signatures, the property papers, the confrontation. She listened in silence, her hand resting over mine, steadying me when my voice cracked. "You did the right thing," she said finally. "But Izzy, you need to be careful. Men like that, they don't let go easy." Her words chilled me, but I nodded. She was right. The following days were a test of endurance. Every spare moment outside of work was spent piecing together my defense. I made copies of everything: receipts, statements, signatures. I organized them into folders labeled by date, highlighting the most damning evidence. I wrote down every conversation I remembered, every slip of the tongue he'd made, every excuse that no longer held water. I met with a lawyer, a stern woman with sharp eyes who scanned my papers with a frown. "You've got a case," she said firmly. "Forgery, fraud, possibly identity theft. But you need to brace yourself. It won't be clean. He'll fight this." "I don't care," I replied, surprising myself with the steadiness in my voice. I just want my life back. At night, lying awake on Marlene's couch, fear gnawed at me. What if he found out before I was ready? What if he tried to drain the accounts before the freeze went through? What if he came after me? But alongside the fear was something new, a flicker of pride. For the first time in months, I wasn't shrinking under his control. I was standing up even if my legs trembled beneath me. The hardest part was keeping quiet. He called, of course, dozens of times a day. At first, the messages were gentle, coaxing. "Babe, where are you? You're scaring me." "Let's just talk, Izzy. We can fix this." When I didn't respond, his tone shifted. "You think you can do this without me? You're making a huge mistake. If you ruin this, it's on you." Each voicemail was another reminder of the cycle. Charm to blame, blame to threat. And each one made me more certain I was doing the right thing. The folder grew thicker as the days passed, not just evidence of what he had done, but proof of what I had done to reclaim my life. Reports filed, accounts frozen, signatures verified as false. Late one night, I sat at Marlene's table surrounded by papers, my hands trembling from exhaustion. I closed my eyes and pictured my father's property, the quiet field where he once taught me to ride a bike. The memory steadied me. I whispered to myself, "He won't take that from me. He won't take me from me." And in that moment, fear bent into something sharper, resolve. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was preparing for war. I knew the day would come when he'd realize. You can't freeze accounts, lock down credit, and hire a lawyer without leaving a trail. The silence between us had stretched too long, and men like him, they feel control slipping like water through their hands. It was a Tuesday evening when the storm finally broke. I had just gotten off work when I saw him. He was leaning against Marlene's front porch, arms crossed, face shadowed in the fading light. My stomach dropped, but I forced my steps steady as I walked toward him. "Where have you been?" he demanded, his voice low and sharp. I tightened my grip on the folder of documents I carried everywhere now. "Not here," I said simply. He scoffed, pushing off the railing. "You think you can just disappear? You think you can freeze everything and leave me in the cold?" I stopped at the bottom of the steps, meeting his glare head on. "They weren't yours to touch." The words cracked the air like lightning. His jaw worked as he stepped closer, his voice rising. "Not mine. Everything I did was for us, for you. Do you think I wanted to juggle all those bills, sign all those forms? I carried you, Izzy. Without me, you'd still be drowning." "You carried nothing," I shot back, my voice shaking but strong. "You forged my name. You stole from me. You lied to my face every single day." His expression twisted, cycling through rage, then desperation, then something almost pitiful. "Izzy, please. You don't understand how much pressure I was under. I didn't mean to hurt you. I was fixing things." I shook my head. "You weren't fixing. You were controlling. And you thought I'd never find out." He reached out suddenly, fingers brushing my arm. I flinched back, the folder pressed tight against me. "That's mine," he hissed, pointing at it. "No," I said, my voice sharp enough to cut glass. "This is mine. Every page, every signature, every lie you told, it's mine. And now it's evidence." For the first time, real fear flickered. In his eyes, he knew. He knew I wasn't bluffing. The shouting drew Marlene to the door. She stepped outside, planting herself between us like a shield. "You need to leave," she said firmly. He sneered. "This is between me and her." "Not anymore," Marlene shot back. "You've lost the right to make it between you and her." I'll never forget the way he looked at me then, like I was both a stranger and his greatest betrayal. His voice dropped, low and venomous. "You'll regret this. You think the world's on your side? You think they care? They'll eat you alive in court." I swallowed hard, my knees trembling, but I didn't look away. Then let them. At least I'll be standing on my own 2 feet. He stormed off after that, his footsteps pounding against the sidewalk, his threats lingering in the air. I sank onto the porch steps, shaking so hard I thought I might collapse. Marlene wrapped an arm around me, steady as stone. "You did it," she whispered. "You stood your ground." But it didn't feel like victory. Not yet. It felt like ashes, like standing in the aftermath of a fire with smoke still clinging to my lungs. The days that followed were chaos. He tried everything. Calls, texts, even letters slipped under Marlene's door. One was full of apologies, begging me to come back. Another was venomous, accusing me of betrayal. Another still was full of promises. "We can start fresh. I'll never touch your accounts again. I saved everyone, adding them to the growing folder. Proof of his manipulation, proof of his cycle. Charm, blame, threat, repeat." When the police finally contacted me about the fraud report, my voice didn't shake as much as I thought it would. I handed them copies, answered their questions, laid bare the story I'd been carrying alone for too long. And for the first time in months, I felt air fill my lungs fully. The fallout wasn't clean. My credit score was scarred, the legal process slow and grinding. Friends who once admired our relationship looked at me with pity or confusion. Some even asked, "Why didn't you see it sooner?" That question hurt most of all, because I did see it. I just didn't want to believe it. But in the quiet moments when I sat with my folder spread before me, I felt something bloom beneath the exhaustion: strength. Not the kind that roars, but the kind that endures. The kind that whispers, "You survived. You acted. You didn't let him win." The confrontation had left scars, but it had also given me back something I thought I'd lost forever: my own voice. And I wasn't going to let anyone steal it again. The dust didn't settle overnight. It never does. Fraud isn't just a wound to your finances. It's a wound to your trust, to your sense of safety, to the way you see yourself in the mirror. Even after the accounts were frozen, after the police took my statement, after the lawyer assured me I'd done everything right, I still woke some nights with my heart hammering, convinced he was still out there forging my name on another page. But slowly, piece by piece, I stitched myself back together. The first step was small: paying a bill on my own again. It sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? To feel proud of something I'd once done 1,000 times without thought. But sitting at the kitchen table with the envelope in front of me, pen in hand, I felt shaky. My own name looked foreign to me, like I wasn't sure if it still belonged. When I finished, when I sealed that envelope and dropped it in the mailbox, I cried. Not because it was hard, but because it was mine, my signature, my choice, my control. I moved back into my apartment eventually. Not the same one, we both knew that space was poisoned, but a smaller place across town. It wasn't much: peeling paint in the hallway, a rattling fridge, thin walls that let in the neighbors' arguments. But it was mine. Every night when I turned the key in the lock, I reminded myself no one else had access. No one else was intercepting my mail, hovering over my desk, convincing me I couldn't handle it. It was just me, my hands, my decisions. And that was enough. Looking back, the hardest part wasn't the financial mess. It wasn't the credit scores, the phone calls, or even the looming court dates. The hardest part was untangling his voice from my own. For so long, I heard his words in my head. "You can't handle this. You'll drown without me. You're paranoid. You're nothing on your own." But with every step forward, every bill paid, every account checked, every quiet night in my own home, I replaced his voice with mine, and mine said, "You are capable. You are resilient. You are free." There were moments of bitterness, of course, nights where I replayed our arguments and thought of sharper things I could have said, days when the weight of repairing what he broke felt unbearable. But bitterness is heavy, and I learned I didn't want to carry it. So instead, I chose something else: resolve. Resolve to guard my name, my choices, my future with the care they deserve. Resolve to listen when my gut whispers, even if my heart protests. Resolve to never again confuse control with love. Sometimes people ask if I'd ever forgive him. It's a question that lingers because forgiveness is complicated. I don't hate him. Hate is its own kind of chain, and I refuse to live bound by it. But forgiveness, that implies debt erased, slate wiped clean, and some betrayals carved too deep for that. So I don't forgive, and I don't hate. I simply release. I let the past live where it belongs, behind me. There was a moment, months later, that sealed it for me. I was back at my father's property, the land he'd fought so hard to keep. The grass was tall, swaying in the breeze, the air full of the scent of earth and memory. I stood there barefoot, toes pressing into the soil, and whispered, "It's safe now." Because it was. Not just the property, but me. I was safe now. If you've listened this far, maybe you've lived through something similar. Maybe not fraud, maybe not forged signatures, but a betrayal that made you question yourself. If you have, I want to tell you something I wish someone had told me. You are not crazy. You are not weak, and you are not alone. Trust broken can make you doubt every instinct, every memory. But there is a strength in you that no one, not even the person closest to you, can erase. Now, when I look back, I don't just see betrayal. I see survival. I see the woman who walked into a bank trembling but refused to sit down. I see the woman who gathered evidence, who stood on that porch and told him no. And most of all, I see a woman who reclaimed her name. That is my story. That is my closure. And if you've been listening, I hope it gives you one thing above all else: the courage to believe in your own voice no matter who tries to silence it.